Hi, this is Sebastian, and today we're going to be doing Microsoft Word 2010. We'll be looking at what you can do in the Page Layout tab and just the first half of it. So to follow along for this tutorial, you should have this document open. It's going to be called the Snail Essay Halfway Edited, and of course we're going to do some editing on it right now. So get that open if you'd like to follow along. I'm going to open up a identical copy of that. So let's scroll down to about page 3 where we can see the nice colors that go along with the headings, and we also have this cool smart art that you hopefully learned how to do from the Insert tab tutorial. So now let's go on to the Page Layout tab, and the very first thing that you'll see to your left on the ribbon is that you can change the theme of your document. So let's go ahead and do that. By hovering over the themes, you're going to get that preview, so you don't actually have to commit to anything. You can just kind of browse. There's some really nice themes in here, and if you're not sure what a theme is a combination of colors, fonts, and effects. So let's go ahead and switch our theme. They all look really nice. Okay, and all right, I've picked Thatched. You can switch back to Office if you want. I like the nice color scheme on that one. Now notice when we change, we did see the change in the color scheme as well as the fonts. Now, let me go back to Office. Let's say I really liked seeing that all blue color, but I'm maybe wanting to keep the fonts that go with the Office theme. I can do that. I can mix and match. So I can click on this Colors drop down right next to the themes, and I can choose to only pull the color scheme from any given theme, while keeping the fonts and the effects of the theme that I'm currently in. So notice if I click on Flow, I get this nice green here, but my fonts don't change. I can always go back to Office, and let's play around with the fonts instead. Watch the fonts in this smart art. Okay, so those are going to change in both size and actual font. Notice that things like your headers will change. So these are all coming from this style set in the Home tab. So let's look if we change to a drastically different font. We go back over here, notice that the styles have changed. So that goes along with your theme, or with the part of the theme that you're changing, this time being the fonts. So let me change back to Office. There we go. Let's move on to the next section of the Page Layout tab. So we just did the section called Themes, and the next one is the Page Setup. There's a lot to do in here, so let's get started. The very first is going to be text direction. It's pretty straightforward. Let's change that to vertical, and all my text has turned, so it's going 90 degrees to how it was before. So let's switch it back to horizontal. You have some other options in here as well as more options if you would like to get picky. You can apply to only the section you're in. You can apply to the whole document. The other options are going to be beyond what you need to know for this video. Let's look at margins next. Margins, there is a normal margin that is your default with 1-inch margins on the top, the bottom, left, and the right. If you change to margins that are called narrow, this next option, that means the margins are narrow, not the actual words. So you'll get a lot more word on your page. If you switch back to maybe wide, you're going to get very few words on your page. Let's go back to normal because this looks a little odd. Okay. If you are the picky type, you can always make your own margins. So click on Margins, go to the bottom, Custom Margins, and you're going to get this dialog box. Of course, this is not the only way to reach this dialog box. You can open the dialog box launcher that's at the bottom right of the Page Setup section, and it brings you to the exact same place. So let's look at what we can do here. You can change any of your margins, top, left, bottom, right, to your own specifications. You can type in whatever you need, or whatever you'd like. Let's see how those look. Notice my preview will update along with me. So maybe I want 0.7 all around. My preview's updating. And then I can click OK, and voila, my margins are changed. Now I can always go back. I can change the orientation of the paper to landscape from here. The preview will match it. Also, if I want to put multiple pages within one page, I can change those advanced options right here. Also, do I want to apply these changes to just the section that my cursor's currently in, or do I want for the rest of the document, or just the entire document? The last thing you'll need to worry about in this particular section of the Page Setup dialog box is Set as Default. So if you make these changes, then click Set as Default, what will happen is whenever you open a new document, that is just a normal document, not any particular template. Whenever you open a new document, the new document will appear with these settings rather than the default, which was the 1-inch margins all around and the portrait orientation. But I'm not going to do that. I am just going to cancel out here, and I'm going to put the margins back on normal. All right, next option that we have is the orientation, which we saw before. We saw it in the dialog box here. We can switch portrait being up and down, landscape side to side, but that's also available right here. There's no further options below this, so it's pretty straightforward. Next button is going to be size. So usually, or often, you'll be printing on letter paper, 8.5 by 11. Letter paper is a little taller. We have some other papers that are available here of different sizes. I also have envelopes available, and of course I can go in and do custom sizes and change that right here. Let me show that one more time. You go to size, all the way to the bottom, more, and pick to your heart's content what type of paper you'll be using. You can also get to print options from here, which brings up the options dialog box, which you can get to, of course, many other ways, and it'll bring you straight to the display category within here. And really the printing options are at the bottom, as well as you can turn on formatting marks to be shown on your screen, which is something that you hopefully learned how to do in the Home tab. So let's not worry too much about print options right now, because we are working with page layout right now. So let's go back to our standard paper, or we could have just, let's just hit OK to bring us back to how it looked before. Great. Our next option is columns. So I'm going to scroll down a little more. Okay, I have this nice list under the Snails as Food section. It's shown up at the top of page 5. So this is a list of countries where people eat snails. And this is great. Let me turn off, let's see. Let me get rid of this section break here. Okay. And add this guy back to the list. Okay, so now it's on page 4. That's fixed. I'll turn off those markings. Great. Now this list is great, but I'm noticing a lot of empty space here. Maybe I could make kind of a more artistic use of my list so I don't have this space just sitting here blankly. So I'm going to highlight my whole list. And now I'm going to go to columns. Currently, I'm in 1 column, but I can split my list into 2 or 3. One thing you'll notice is that I have these lines between my columns. Maybe you don't have that. Well, you can turn that on. Go to columns, and you're going to go to more columns. In this box, there's a little option here. You might miss it if you weren't paying attention. It says line between. Go ahead and uncheck that to get rid of the lines. Let's look at the rest of the options. In the drop down, we have left, which puts the columns so that there's a little break towards the left of the page, and then right pushes the break over to the right side of the page. Pretty self-explanatory. If you go back to more columns, you can make all sorts of changes to the width of your columns. You can say if you want the columns to be equal width, and if you choose that option, you only have to tell it one time. Do I want my columns to be 3 inches or some other width that I can customize? And then also spacing. You can change the space between the columns. So let's play around with that and see what's the difference in the width and the spacing. So I'm going to click OK. Let's go back and make this 3 columns instead. Whoa, what's happened here? Let's go back and see what's going on. Well, notice my width has for some reason been turned down to 0.01 inches. That's why my columns did this funny thing. So let's change the width back to 1 and maybe the spacing back to, let's put that on 0.3, see how that looks. Okay, much better. So the actual width we can see up here, the 1 inch for the actual size of the column, and then there's a little 0.3 inch buffer zone in between, and that's just kind of a dead zone. Nothing's going to go in there. It's just in between the columns, separating them. And I believe that's it for options as far as columns are concerned. Remember, you can turn equal column width off, and then if you have 3 columns, you can play around with the size of all 3 of those, as well as the spacing for all 3. You can apply the settings that you've just tinkered with to just the text that you have selected, just the sections, or the whole document. I think I'm just going to leave that as is. Great. So we've gotten through all the way through columns. Let's go on to breaks. Let's stay in this section. And okay, my list is looking a little more interesting now. It's in 3 different columns. But what if for some reason, whatever it is, artistic or otherwise, I want to separate Italy and Morocco? So that's where I want a new column to start. Maybe I just like the letter M and I want it to be at the top. So I'm going to go behind Italy, and we're going to click on breaks. And this second option here, column, let's do that. Let's click on that. Notice what happened. You have added a column break. So all that means is behind Italy, I am going to force you into starting a new column. And I can do this many other times in my list. So maybe I want Portugal to be at the top of the next column. So I would go behind the Philippines. And so we would want to start right after, right here, with my new column. So let's go add another break here. Okay, so maybe for whatever reason I wanted it split up this way. Great, mission accomplished. Now, here's the thing with breaks. Breaks are a little funny. You can get rid of them. It's kind of a strange way. Let's go back to the Home tab, and let's, here in the paragraph section, let's turn on our paragraph, all of our really editing markings. And what do you see here? Well, remember, paragraphs have their own little funny symbol as well as spaces. And look after Italy. You can actually see a symbol, and it tells you the name. It's just some dots and then column break. So that's the symbol representing this is where you put a column break. If you want to get rid of it, you're going to have to highlight that symbol and just backspace. Okay, and here we have another one. I'm going to get rid of that one as well. And look, we are back to how we started except for the editing marks. Okay, so now we're back to not having any column breaks, but that's how you insert them and remove them. Let's look at some of those other types of breaks that we had available in the page layout tab. So now let's scroll, let's scroll up to this paragraph about slugs, which for me is on page 2. The bottom of page 2. So what do you notice about this paragraph on slugs? It's split over a page break, and that might be fine, but sometimes you really want to emphasize a paragraph and you want to start it at the beginning of a new page. So let's learn how to do that. So let's say from the word slugs right here, that is what I want to be exactly at the top of a new page. So you might be tempted to put your cursor in front of the word, hit enter a bunch of times. Oh man, it really flew. Okay, and that's not working out so well. And another problem with that is, let's say I go back and type some text here, some other things, pretend I'm inserting some things, and now maybe this table gets pushed and now this isn't at the top of a new page. Remember I said I wanted this paragraph to be the first thing you see when you get to a new page. So there's a way to do that. Let's get rid of these fillers that I put. Now I'm going to go back in front of the word slugs and we're going to just go to breaks. And there's a break called a next page break. So it pushed my document, or I'm sorry, it pushed the paragraphs within the document so that it appears at the beginning of a fresh page. Now here's a little trick, kind of not related to the page layout tab, but notice how you see the page break and you see all this white space. Let's say you don't want to deal with that. You just don't want to see it right now. If you double click, it hides that. And then you can also bring it back with another double click. So as long as you're seeing this special little cursor, you can do the double click. Great, so this is how we add a next page break to our document. Once again, we can see that by going and turning our editing markings on, and there it is. It's quite large, and we can also delete it. So let me show that again. All you have to do, highlight it entirely, delete. And now this paragraph can start wherever it wants to start. You have some more breaks that are available to you. So we also have continuous breaks. And a continuous break means, well, we don't have to start this on a new page, but I want to create a special little section of the document. And to create a special section of a document, all I have to do is put a continuous break before the section and after. So maybe this particular paragraph right here has some importance and I want to make it its own section. So all I would have to do, go before, break, continuous break. Okay, I can see it right here, the marking, and I can go right after it, and it jumped, my cursor jumped here, that's okay, as long as there's nothing in between. Break, continuous, and now this behaves as its own section. So we'll talk about the significance of sections later in another video, but for now, you know how to make a section. and that's what's important in the page layout tab. Great. Back to breaks. There are some other types of breaks at the bottom here, and that's even page and odd page. And this will start a section break and then push your text, the beginning of your paragraph, to a new even page. So it's like even more powerful than the next page break. And then odd page does the same thing, but for an odd page. And that's the gist of the breaks options in page setup. Let's move on. And I'm now going to go, let's go to this paragraph on page 1. Let's turn off our editing markings. Great. Let's look at page layout, line numbers. So right now I don't have any line numbers, but if I go to continuous, this first option, it's just going to put continuous line numbers throughout my document. What's happened here? What did we do here? Well, this is where I made that special section, and this is why the numbers cut off at this point. So that's one purpose of creating a section. I can kind of say, hey, stay out to these line numbers. Okay, so let's go back. I'm going to go back to page 1. Let's look at other types of line numbers. I have the ability to start the line numbers on every page, so let's look at that. They started over here. When we did continuous, they kept going 30, 31, 32, rather than starting fresh from 1. You can restart each section. So right here, it won't start in this section though until I go and turn it on for this section. I can say restart. There we go. I've restarted the numbering within this section. I can also suppress for the current paragraph. So let's scroll back up. So maybe for some reason this paragraph, right now it's line 26 through 31, maybe I just don't want it to count for whatever reason. Well, just put your cursor in that paragraph and suppress. Okay, so notice it skips from 25. This counts as a paragraph. The word overview, this one is not part of that paragraph because I hit enter between here and here. So this paragraph just doesn't count when we do the counting or the numbering. So 26 is where it picks up after this paragraph has ended. You can go back and turn that off if you would like. Other than that, if you would like to get even more picky, there's a way to do that. Go to line numbering options, and it brings us to this familiar dialog box, right? Now to get to line numbers, it's kind of, you're going to have to hunt, I guess, a little bit. Go down to line numbers. And you can do all sorts of strange things here. You can start the numbering not at 1. If you wanted to start it at 6 because you wrote 5 lines on another page, you can do that. You can change it so that you're not counting by 1, you're counting by 3 or 5, whatever you'd like. And then also the options that we've seen before. You can choose to restart on each page, continuous. I'm just going to cancel out of this and cancel out of this box as well. Great, so that's it for line numbers. Let's go ahead and turn those guys off. All right, our last section, or our last option here is hyphenation. So for hyphenation, let's see what we currently have. Well, currently it's none. And what hyphenation does, let's just turn it on and see. So I'm going to put it on automatic. What did you notice happened in this paragraph? Well, the word mollusks before, the word mollusk was simply pushed all onto the next line. Let's look at that again. None. So it was all on one line. If we have no hyphenation, here's what happens. You type a word right here. It's too long. It goes over, starts spilling into your margins. Well, Word is just going to say, hey, you got to go on to the next line. You don't belong on this line. So if you have none, that's what happens. Now, if you have hyphenation on automatic, Word will automatically split up your words, and it'll try to do it so that it splits the word according to the syllables. So mollusks, that's between those two syllables is where they put the hyphen. Also, we have gastropods down here. Great, so we didn't have to worry about anything. That was automatic. Now, if you are picky, you can always go to manual, and you can choose precisely in your word where the hyphen is going to go. Now, I'm not that picky, so let's just cancel on that. And there are options. Let's go to hyphenation options. Now, the hyphenation zone, that's how close to the margin should your word get before we have to worry about hyphenating it. So you can turn that up or down. Sometimes you might have a bunch of hyphens in a row. Some people might think that looks weird. So you could set a limit so that after 4 hyphens in a row, well, if we have another one, let's just kick that word to the next line and not have another hyphen there. But you can just have it no limit so that there's no problem. You can have all hyphens all the way down the page if you'd like. Here we can turn on or off the automatic hyphenation, and then also words with caps, capital letters. Do we want to hyphenate those or not? That's another option you can toggle on and off. Let's cancel out of here. Let's look back here at the dialog box, and the page setup dialog box, we've gone through the margins tab, we've gone through the paper tab, we've gone to line numbers within this tab. Okay. Header and footer will cover or was covered in the insert tab, and document grid. Let's look at document grid. Right now we have this set so that there is no grid, but you can set it text snaps to character grid, and it's easier to just show you what this option does. So let's turn that on. You can change characters per line. Let's show that. Okay, so you notice that your words all just kind of snapped to an invisible grid that is behind the words. Now we can always go back, turn this off, or we could change it so that there's fewer characters per line and more or fewer lines. So we can make those changes to get our words back so they're a little more condensed, not so far apart. Or we can just turn that grid right off. Our preview is right here, and let's click OK, and this is just kind of back to how it was without the grid. So we've gone through the first half of the page layout tab. I hope you've learned something, and the next video will cover the second half of the page layout tab, so check out that video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.